All right, waiting for all of the streams coming. Give us 1 second, everyone.
All right. Looks like we're spinning here. Hopefully we're going live and everything's checked. Looks like we're good to go.
Oh, we're good to go. Good evening, everyone. Happy Saturday, and welcome to another installment of the Orange and Blue View. I'm your co-host, Ron White. On that side, my partner in crime, Thomas Hall. And we have some exciting news. Obviously, training camp has been the buzz. Training camp has kicked off. And this was the second day of training camp. And there's been a lot of different things, a lot of excitement in Broncos country, a lot of good plays, a lot of good things happening. So we're going to get in that live. But before we do, how are you doing, Thomas?
I'm doing good, man. I'm excited to hear the reports coming back from camp. It makes me excited to get out there myself. So next week we will Luke Patterson and I will be out there together watching camp and bringing you some news. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about it, man. I'm excited about the news that is coming out of camp. Actually, I mean, there's
Mhm.
obviously been a couple controversy. Sean Payton's comments, and then
Mhm.
Frank Clark saying what he said today, and we can get into that too. But
Yes.
yeah, it's been it's been fun, and it's fun to hear what's going on and get into that with everybody in the chat. And
Yes.
before we do, man, let's grab Michael Ronquillo coming in already with Facebook stars saying thank you for the support, Michael. He's saying good evening, Thomas and Ron on Orange and Blue View. Go Broncos and Buckham. Thank you very much for the support. Really, really appreciate it, Michael. So how are you doing, Ron? Are you excited about all the news coming out of camp, or what's your feelings so far?
Yes, first before I get into that, yeah, thank you, Michael, for your support on the live streams on Twitter. I just want to say thank you and continue doing what you, my brother. And I'm doing well. And yes, there's a lot of buzz for training camp, Thomas, and we could definitely get into a few of the takeaways. But before I do, I kind of want to greet some more people here as they're coming in. We got Kevin Gray coming in. He says, "Evening, Thomas, Ron, and Scott. Big Mile High salute to Broncos country. Denver Broncos for life. MHH for life." Well, thank you, Kevin, for coming in. We always appreciate you, my man. And then we got Dom Armilio coming in from Facebook. Thank you, Dom. He says, "Good evening, Thomas, Ron, Scott, and Broncos country. Denver Broncos for life." Good evening to you too as well, Dom. And then we got Harold Jean coming in. Thank you, Harold. He says, "Russ had a better day today." Yes. Yes, that's a good segue, Harold, into a few of my takeaways. So let's get into it, Thomas. So at least from my observations, I wrote down. I have a lot of different takeaways from training camp, but I don't think we have the time to go through all of them. But I would say the three biggest takeaways, at least from day two, um, is that Russell Wilson is now starting to look like the old Seattle Russ. We've seen him maneuver in the pocket a little easier, of course, as he's slimmed down, mostly stepping up in that pocket to find the receivers. He's going through those progressions. The ball is coming out quicker. I know there were a few 7-on-7 drills today. I think he hit P. Ryan down the field and Judy as well. And there was also that good play to Cortland Sutton, I think near the sidelines where Sutton had to high point the ball over the defender to grab it. So we are seeing Russell. I know it's still early, obviously, with training camp, but we're seeing Russell kind of come back to that Seattle form, the Russ that we know, and of course the vintage Russell with the running, right? Ability to kind of tuck and run when nothing's open. So again, to your point, it wasn't the perfect day for us, at least today, but we did see much better execution during the practice today.
Yeah, for sure. And just want to say hello to Albert Knoppers. Thanks for coming in. Hopefully you can watch the rest of the show later. Thanks for stopping by. Really appreciate it, as always. And before I jump into what my kind of thoughts are on Russell Wilson, just want to say hey to Dylan Von Arks, one of our guys here at MHH coming in. Thank you for being here in the evening with us. Really appreciate it. And he's reminding everyone to hit the like button and share on all platforms and definitely subscribe. So thanks for the reminder, Dylan. Really appreciate that. And then I also want to grab Gary Palmer coming in with some super chat. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Saying hi, Thomas and Ron. Go Broncos and Buckham. Thank you, Gary. Really, really, really appreciate that. As always, you're a big supporter for this show and other shows. So thank you. Yeah. So just to jump onto what you were talking about, Russ did look better today, right? He did. From what I understand, and from Luke out there and checking it out, he held on the ball a little too long on Friday probably, but on Saturday today he looked a lot better, right? So he looked like he was getting the ball out quicker. The from what I understand is the offense looks like it's something that's going to be a lot of quick throws, right? Not, that's kind of the what I would say is the mantra is to get the ball out quickly and get it out of his hands. But he did move up into the pocket a little bit better. But I'll tell you, the defense has been pretty solid so far, which isn't unexpected, right? The defense has been harassing Russ and others. But, typically before all the offensive plans get kind of put in there, it will oftentimes you'll see the defense come out ahead more often than not. So I'm excited to see what Russell Wilson does, next week, right? Because right now they're putting in the plan, so it's probably just kind of going by instinct or whatever and doing this or that, or he doesn't have the real feel of the offense yet. So we'll see. But that improvement from one day to the next is great. But all reports are he's looking better and everything. So that's really good.
Yes, most definitely. And we got David McGillrath coming in. Thank you, David. We appreciate you, my man, with the super chat. He says, "Good evening, Broncos country. Tom, Ron, Dylan, and Deacon Scott. Hashtag 12 and 5. Yes, you're sticking with it. That's good. Yes. Hashtag Buckham 3 times. Hashtag MHH for life. Hashtag Denver Broncos for life." Again, thank you, David, so much for your generosity. We appreciate you, my man. And yeah, 12 and 5. Again, that's not out of the realm of the possible. I have, and then we'll get into record predictions a little later. But yeah, around 11 and 6, 12 and 5 is what I'm thinking as well. And again, it's not out of the realm of the possible, but yeah, 12 and 5 for sure. It's a good record.
And we've got a couple other comments coming. Gage Madrid, who's out there also watching camp. Thanks for jumping in here today, Gage, and saying hi to us. Saying he definitely looked better. Still a couple rough plays, held the ball too long, a batted ball, a couple misreads. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's practice, so hopefully that really changes. But thanks, Gage, for the update. Appreciate that. And we've got someone coming in. I'm assuming from Seattle. You have a 12 here. Russell Wilson will be fine. Lonnie Del Vecchio, I think it's how it's pronounced. Thanks for stopping by and giving us the take on your thoughts, being from Seattle. So that's wonderful. It says, get them out on that field on crunch time. Usually he can put out. This is a new year for him. He's going to be nothing like last year. Yeah. Well, thanks for stopping by, Lonnie. Really appreciate that coming in from Facebook. And it's a nice perspective. We have seen a lot of comments from Seattle that weren't really positive about Russell. So thanks for stopping in. Really appreciate that. Yes, now I want to grab this comment that came in fairly early, and let's see if I can find it. Dom actually said, "I heard running back number 38 is killer fast." So that is Jaleel McLaughlin, running back, kind of what they used to call scat back, kind of smaller, 5'7", close to 190, but fast. And I heard he looks pretty good too. And in fact, I actually picked him to be my offensive player of camp because he's got that, he's working hard to make the team. He's going to have that ability to kind of, wow some people with his speed and his ability to move, or especially in drills and things like that. So, yeah, I'm hoping that he kind of pans out because the Broncos need that third kind of change of pace guy, really. I mean, you got Javonte Williams, who is miraculously healed. I don't know how. I can't believe it, but it's wonderful. And you got P. Ryan, who's another one of those kind of bruiser backs. And then it'd be nice to have a little, kind of a change of pace guy to come in, and he fits the bill. And they really don't have much competition, right? In camp right now, they only have, I think, 5 running backs on the roster for competition. So it's one of those things that they feel like they're kind of settled in who they have. So what do you think, Ron?
Yeah, so that, Dom, thank you for that, because that was actually my second takeaway, the running
Okay.
back battle. And before I get into McLaughlin, for sure, you're right. Javonte Williams looks. Again, I know it's still early, and they're going to ease him in, but he looks like he even never had an injury, Thomas. Like, he looks
Right.
right. He looks sharp, crisp. Like, I know there was that. I think it was like the first play on 11 on 11, and he burst and cut back for like a nice long run. I think the crowd was into it. So yeah, that's definitely encouraging. And P. Ryan also reeled in a touchdown from Wilson as well. So yeah, Javonte looks real crisp. Yeah, as far as number 30, McLaughlin, I did predict that he would be that RB3.
Yeah.
And
I think he's going to surprise people.
Yes, he's going to be that RB3, just because what I've seen so far. You're right, Dom. He's very fast, very quick, very slippery. And the Broncos can use that, in certain situations, because we know with Javonte and Samaje Perine, they're more of those power backs. But McLaughlin coming in with the speed and the quickness to also keep defenses honest is something that that's intriguing me as well. So that's definitely good.
From reports from Luke, really, Luke Patterson, who's out there, go say hi to him if you're out there, get a picture with him. He says that that Javonte and Perine both looked really good. So that the 1-2 punch coming out is already looking good. So that's great news. So I think that's part of the reason why the Broncos were happy with who they had and didn't have to make a big splash. So I'm going to grab Miguel's coming in with Facebook Stars. So thank you very much for the support. Really appreciate it. Saying, "What's up, fellas? Hope you've been good. It's been a while. Been super busy." Well, I'm glad you could make it tonight. This is an exciting time. We're getting into camp, and there's a lot of buzz going. And asking how the O-line is looking. Well, I haven't heard a lot about the O-line. Number one, McGlinchey isn't there, right? He is out for personal reasons. So the whole the starting line that we expect really isn't together. And they've been doing a lot of drills, and not necessarily the team as much, team offense as much. So I haven't really heard a whole lot about the offensive line, and I can ask Luke, and I'll definitely check it out when I'm out there. But Ron, have you heard much about the O-line? I know that people are, it's not exciting to talk about the O-line. It's more exciting to talk about the great catch that somebody made or the nice run that someone made. But so far, I haven't heard a whole lot.
Yeah, Miguel, this is a good question, but yeah, it's really hard to get an evaluation on the offensive line now, because you're right, McGlinchey's out, and then they're trying to ease Garrett Bowles back from that injury as well. So I think we'll have a better idea maybe a little bit later once McGlinchey gets back into the fold of how the offensive line looks, and that's part of the reason why there's been so much, I guess, pressure from that defense. Just because the O-line right now isn't really at a point where we can, kind of do the evaluation, at least from the starters.
Yeah.
But I guess once, as Thomas mentioned, once camp kind of revs up more, we'll start to kind of see that evaluation take shape.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where people don't watch. But what is happening out there, which is surprising to me right out of the gate, that I've heard is that Caden Stern's actually been the starter. Kareem Jackson's actually been running with the twos. Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about the defense, that's interesting. That to me, that's a very interesting development, because I've said that if JL Skinner can make some noise and Caden Stearns makes that leap, you might see the young youth movement, and you might see Kareem Jackson on the outside looking in. I know it's the second day. He had a vet day on the first day, and it's the second day, so I'm not going to jump to too many conclusions here. But it's interesting to start out because usually the experienced guy is going to be, the one that kind of starts out, and the younger guys have to make the impression. So that'll be fun to watch for sure.
Yes, most
And we
definitely.
got Michael coming back in asking about our thoughts on Frank Clark comments today after training camp. I'll let you jump in there, Ron. I have a few thoughts for sure, but I'll let you jump in there and tell me what you think.
Yeah, I did see those comments, and I mean, he's telling the truth, guys. It's really not, it hasn't been a rivalry between Kansas City and Denver in quite some time. So, until the Broncos can stack up, some wins against Kansas City, it's not going to be competitive. And, obviously we know the reasons why that hasn't happened over the past, I guess, close to a decade now. I think our last win against Kansas City was during our Super Bowl year. But I think we'll start to see that tide shift with Sean Payton. But he's right that it's no competition at all. In the AFC West, we have Patrick Mahomes, and then there's everyone else. There's the Kansas City Chiefs, and there's everyone else. So until we can get back to, competitive football, until we can, be the more aggressive team within the division, that's going to remain the way it is. So I had no problems with what Frank Clark said, because just like I had no problems with what Sean Payton said earlier in the article. It's the truth. Someone has to come out and say what needs to be said. And until, this team kind of turns it around, that's just where we are. So
yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the truth hurts. It's what I said about Sean Payton's comments, right? The truth will hurt sometimes. Sometimes it can be said with, more tact or whatever. But when it comes down to it, the Broncos have not been competitive at all, and not just against the Kansas City Chiefs, but in the NFL in general. So it's time to turn that around. And if Frank Clark, his comments help to turn that around, that's great. But people need to hear the truth. And I know that there was a big uproar. The Jets were all upset. Some of the players from the Jets, after, especially, Billy Turner, who's a friend with Nathaniel Hackett, after what Gary Payton said, or what George Payton said. I'm going back to 90s basketball here. What Sean Payton said about the Jets and Nathaniel Hackett, but that was the truth, right? I mean, Hackett did a horrible job. And that's part of the reason why the Broncos have not been able to get that monkey off their back when it comes to beating the Chiefs. So I have no problem with it at all. He said, I have, if you're telling the truth about something, then, that's fine. It's truth. Just do it with a little tact if you can, but sometimes you can't. We're going to grab Daniel Yost's comment here. Maybe. All right, here we go. Daniel's coming in. Says, what are your thoughts on Coach Sean Payton's culture and standards for this year's team and their regular season? Denver Broncos for life. Buckham, Broncos country. Let Russ cook, and let's ride. What do you think, Ron?
I love it. He has high expectations. He did say in the article he will be pissed if this is not a playoff team, if the Broncos will make the playoffs. So you're right. That should be the standard. I mean, that standard's been going back even longer before Payton arrived. That's the Bolden standard. So, I think we have the pieces in place to make the playoffs. With his culture being installed, Daniel, a lot of the players now have come out saying how much of an educational coach he is. So that culture of teaching and training the coaches and the players on how he wants things done, how he wants players to perform. That speaks of his experience and his veteran leadership, and his proven success in the NFL. So with his expectations, with his culture, those standards are going to be high, and the Broncos, again, they have all the pieces in place to make the playoffs. Again, I would be very surprised, Thomas, if this is not a playoff team at the end of the day, given coaching, given what we have on offense and defense, and we'll see that improvement in special teams as well.
Well, I mean, the change of the culture is pretty evident already. I mean, this team is already acting like a real football team, not somebody that's out having fun, with their friends. And that's what it seemed like last year. And the second thing is he brings a culture of winning. He's obviously won before, so I actually enjoy it. From the outside looking in, this team has already, it looks kind of old school, right? And I know that some of the old school ways aren't always the best, but having people in shape and ready to go and conditioned, ready to play in training camp was huge. It's none of this, you got to get, people out there getting into shape and, we'll go have a bunch of water breaks and stuff. This isn't the same thing, right? This is different. And he's brought in people whom he knows, right? That he has familiarity with to help instill that culture. Brought in a lot of people from the Saints, players and coaches. So I actually, it's refreshing to me. I mean, I know that Fangio kind of had that, old school mentality. He said a lot of things, but he never implemented it well, right? He couldn't bring it to fruition on the field. He was kind of had that, gave the death by inches speech and everybody bought into it, but the team didn't buy into his leadership. So now the team looks like they're bought in. They're doing what it takes. I mean, and Russell Wilson, who's the face of the franchise, he's the quarterback. He is bought into it. You can see that he's bought into it. Other players have bought into it. I actually think that their team is going to be better prepared and less likely to have dumb penalties, right? They're going to execute well. So that's going to play out in the regular season. And if that thought process of mine is correct, that they're going to they're not going to lose games because of something dumb like they did last year. They're going to win more games. It's all there is to it. And if the offense is executing at a higher level, that will give more games. So, I mean, I think 10-7 is realistic. I know I was really excited last year, and I'm cautiously optimistic this year, but I mean, the roster's still a pretty solid roster. And if it really boils down to if the offense can get the best out of Russell Wilson and Russell Wilson can play well, that's where it comes down to, and injuries. And if those two things are fixed, then why not make the playoffs?
Yeah, most definitely.
We got Gary Palmer coming back in with another $4.99 super chat.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you very much, Gary. Really appreciate that. Thanks for the support. He says, I was just thinking about how if Hackett hadn't screwed up so badly, we wouldn't have Sean Payton. A silver lining, LOL. Yeah, Gary, it was such an embarrassment, though. It's like hard to think about having Hackett. I know that, you can look on the bright side and everything. And when I look back at the debacle that Josh McDaniels created, it was almost so bad. It was almost like he was sent to destroy the Broncos on purpose from the Patriots. That's how bad it was. And then we ended up, with the team that we ended up watching, right? The Broncos end up with a good team, end up Super Bowl. So I guess you can look at a silver lining. It was so embarrassing, man. It's so hard to Hackett was an embarrassment. He just was. He was, McDaniels was the worst coach in history because of what he did to the team. Hackett is the second worst coach in history because he was just inept.
Yeah, I think both were just horrible. I think the side for both worst coaching jobs ever. Yeah, Hackett was just awful. He was way in over his head. He didn't know how to connect with the players. There was no improvement at all. Didn't know how to really coach. So it was just as Sean Payton mentioned in the article, guys, it was just a bad show. It was an embarrassment last year. So now you're right, Gary. Now, if Hackett didn't epically fail, then we wouldn't have Sean Payton. So thank God for that failure so we can have Payton, and hopefully this team will end up being successful.
Yeah, for sure. So a couple other things that I'd like to just kind of hit on as we're going through training camp stuff. I mean, obviously the defense is looking pretty good. From what Luke said, Patrick Surtain looks even better, right? Even better than, this is only the second day and he's already dominating. So obviously he's gone and even fine-tuned his craft and looked at more, more tape, and he's just even better now, which is hard to believe because he's already the best corner in the NFL, right? So it's hard to believe he's even better. So that's awesome. And then the other great thing too that I think is very positive because we lost, we saw the team lose Draymond Jones, but Zach Allen looks really
Yes,
good. Zach
that's what
Allen
I
looks
like.
really good
Yep.
in camp
Hmm.
and has been pretty dominant. So those are, those obviously Pat Surtain was a no brainer. He was going to be good, but to know that Zach Allen's coming in and playing the way he is already is very refreshing because, it is hard to lose players like Draymond Jones. And it looks like they filled his hole well with a very good player. So have you heard that as well?
Yes, that was my third takeaway.
All right.
It was the Zach Allen show. That's how I titled this. Like, very ferocious with the pass rushing, creating a lot of pressure today. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how he evolves, gets better throughout camp and in the preseason. But yeah, I've heard that as well. There've been a lot of comments and clips on the Zach Allen pass rushing.
Great. I'm going to just grab Victor Ferrer is coming in with a question about George Payton. How much blame does GM George Payton get for hiring Hackett? Well, he gets pretty much all the blame because it was his choice, and that's one of the black eyes on George Payton, really. So yeah, I mean, I said that too after the comments that Sean Payton made and was talking about how it was the entire organization had a hand in it. Well, George Payton had a huge hand and he hired him. That was and not, I'm not blaming George Payton. Like other teams are after Hackett, right? They wanted, the other teams were wanting Nathaniel Hackett to coach for them. So it wasn't like he just went out and found a friend that he wanted and it was a big mistake. I mean, he was a hot ticket item, but it was a disaster. and George Payton has a lot has blame on his hands. And, to sit there and watch as the ownership group, to watch the debacle that was happening. We all saw it. What Sean Payton said, we all witnessed. We were all witness to it. They had a hand in it too, because they could have stepped in early, made a change. And you saw the big change that happened. As soon as Hackett was gone and Jerry Rosberg came in, the team was a different team, completely different. And now you got even a better coach coming in, and it's going to even be a better team. So yeah, definitely that's a black eye on, and George Payton's going to have to do some catching up to turn Broncos fans around, right? To his way of doing things.
Yes, thank you, Victor, for coming in with that question. And yeah, I agree with Thomas. George Payton gets 100% of the blame. I mean, he made the hire. So he gets 100% of the blame. And this is, if we're grading specific moves, this is an F. This is a complete F when it comes to everything when you put it in perspective. And Sean Payton was right in the sense that Payton and everyone up from Payton, they allowed this to continue. Someone could have stepped in earlier, because we saw a little bit early on in the season that this was just an embarrassing show. Like, the season wasn't going to be great at all. So we saw that earlier, and someone could have stepped in earlier to stop this, to fire Nathaniel Hackett earlier. We probably could have had Rosberg even early, and who knows how the season would have shook out. So, but yeah, 100%. George Payton is to blame 100% of this hire. Again, hopefully with the hiring of Sean Payton, we know George Payton's done great with the draft classes. Hopefully he can do a rebound, but yeah, this is all his fault.
Yeah,
For sure.
I'm going to grab Lawrence Rivera here, coming with Facebook Stars. Lawrence, thank you for the support as always, and being a loyal listener and supporter of the show. And Lawrence says, I don't think that's completely it, though. Russ came in and wouldn't play till he got a contract, and when he did it, it was only a deal to probably play as a passing QB, so his hands were tied as a first-year coach. I mean, that what Lawrence is saying is that there is some blame to go on Russ, and I do slightly agree with that, because Russ had a hand in the playbook, and they were kind of working together. But from my perspective, Nathaniel Hackett's the leader, right? He's the leader of the team, and if he didn't think that should happen, then he should have stepped in and said no. And right now, Russ is falling in line. And maybe that's because he was so bad last year, he realized that didn't work either. But he seems to be falling in line and doing what Sean Payton wants. So Yeah, I mean, Russ has some to blame for sure, but as the leader of the team, you have to be the one that says no. You're not you're not going to be just a strictly passing QB. You need to do other things in order for us to win, because that's the most important thing. And maybe you could be right, Lawrence. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what actually went on behind closed doors, but he definitely had a hand in it, and it was the wrong thing. We all saw it. It was the wrong thing.
Yes, Lawrence, thank you. And yeah, Russ is at fault as well. I like that Sean Payton did come up and vouch for us, but last year there was blame to go around for everybody. And you're right, as the leader of the team, as the head coach, Nathaniel should have stepped in and say, "Hey, no, Russ, we're not doing it this way. We're going to do it this way." I think part of being a good leader, part of being a coach, a great coach, is to always play to the strengths of the players. If you see something that's not going well, you address it with your players and you try to fix it. And I felt as though Hackett didn't do that. It was, he thought that Russ was just going to be this. Yeah, he wanted to be this pocket passer, this passing quarterback, but I think Hackett should have realized that there could be some plays within that can help with Russ, but that's not Russ's true style. So he should have observed that and picked up on that from the jump. Hackett should have, is what I meant. And then, better things could have happened and he could have suited to Russ's play strength. So, but yeah, Russ is definitely partially to blame for this as well.
We had Dom coming in asking if the Broncos end up with a 9 or 10 win season, does the front office move on from Russ? Ron, I'm gonna let you jump in first, see what you have to say.
Thank you, Dom. That's a good question. It really depends on a few things. I would say if it's 9 wins, and I guess it depends on how these games shaped out. If they're like 9 and 8, and if these were close nail biting games where we saw Russ, he wasn't clutch, but he did perform well, then I don't see a move. Obviously, if they make the playoffs, if they do 10 and 7, they're not gonna make a move as well. But if we see Russ go back to what Russ was last year, and we do get a 9 and 8 record, then the front office will definitely be moving on from Russ. So again, I guess, Don, what I'm trying to say is really depends on how these games shake up, like how these games, what the result of these games are, and how Russ looked playing in these games. What do you think, Thomas?
Yeah, I would say that if they win 9 or 10 wins, they're not going to move on from him unless the entire team carried him and he was so bad that it was awful, but the rest of the team was so good that they carried him, which I just don't see happening.
Yeah,
I don't see it. So the amount of money they have tied up in Russ, if they can get to 9 or 10 wins, they're not going to move on from him, because that doesn't give them any other way to replace him, really, right? So I mean, I guess they could say, okay, bye, we're going to go with Jared Stidham, but it's one of those areas in the draft where you can't, and they don't have enough capital to move all the way up to grab one of those top play callers. They got a lot of money tied up in Russ. I just don't see, if they get 9 or 10 wins, it means Russ played at least adequately, because this team is not, the defense isn't built to carry them to Super Bowl like in 2015. That was a historic level defense. I don't see that happening. They can have a very good defense. I don't see historic level type defense. And if they just rely on the running game the whole time, that's going to become very predictable. So my guess is, I would say no. I mean, it's not even, if they win 9 or 10 games, it's a no, right? They've improved. Russ obviously had to have improved to do that. They would have to go, they'd have to win 5 games again, and then to say, okay, that's it. We're going to have to rebuild. We're going to go grab, we're going to trade some picks, and we're going to try and grab one of the top signal callers and go from there. Because I don't believe in Jarrett Stidham, right? I mean, he they're saying the right thing. They paid him a lot. He's a backup, but he's not done anything from my perspective to say, okay, well, let's just go with him, unless it's like an emergency and they have to do it. So I don't think so. Now, one thing that I would like to make a comment on is the wide receivers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tim Patrick is already looking pretty good out there, which
Yeah.
to me is a surprise. Now, it's not, I mean, there's no pads on. So again, second day, we don't want to jump to conclusions, but having him back and looking good already after that injury is huge, because I
Yes.
thought it would take him a while to get back into the swing of things. I thought it would take him a while to, to kind of get mentally ready to go out there and play. And maybe that will be different when the pads are gone and people are making contact with him. But that's a huge development for me. That means that they have three top wide receivers. And now I'm not saying top in the NFL, but three number one type wide receivers
Yes.
with Patrick Sutton and Judy. So that's a great development. And then on top of that, Kendall Hinton, who is has to make has to make a statement for one, and has to make some hay on special teams. Has really not been very good so
Performing well.
far,
Yeah.
dropping punts,
Mhm.
not really doing well on offense. So I think they brought in a ton of wide receivers, and they're wanting the best to shake out. And I think they've already got their mind made up on four, unless they decide to trade it. So there's only two spots probably left, and those guys are gonna have to battle hard. So what have you been hearing about the wide receiver group?
Yeah. I've been hearing the same thing. Yeah, Patrick looks great, looks amazing coming back from an injury. Heard that Sutton looks good as well. But I've also heard that, and I think I've seen this, that Jerry Judy even looks better. He's going to have this huge role in Payton's offense. And I've been hearing rumblings of he's going to be essentially that first read. Like whenever Russ has the ball in his hands trying to throw, Jerry Judy's going to be that first target that he tries to get to. So it's you're right, Thomas, that the wide receiver room looks really really good. And it's just going to be fascinating to see how it all shakes out. I want to grab a comment here from Keith, because this leads into one of my other takeaways. Thank you, Keith Brugman, for coming in. Who do you think could make the largest contribution from our rookie class? The linebacker fan that I am, I'm going to say Drew Sanders. This guy looks incredible in camp. His ability to just move from sideline to sideline, the quick switch of the hips, instincts, in some of the pressure situations. I am really excited to see what his contribution is going to be on this defense, Keith. Again, I'm already seeing that raw talent there, but yeah, playing alongside Josie Jewell and Alex Singleton, it's going to be amazing. So my answer for you is going to be Drew Sanders.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Marvin Mims. I know
Mhm.
he's been injured and he hasn't been out there really, so he's got a hamstring injury. But if he can heal up from that, and I'm gonna go with him, not so much on offense, because I mean I think he will play on offense. He's going to be that fourth guy on the field probably if he gets healthy and can stay healthy. But his impact will be felt on special teams. I think he's going to be the punt returner. I think he's going
Yeah.
to be the punt returner, and you're going to see there's a huge emphasis on special teams. And Sean Payton even came out and talked about it. I think it was today in his press conference specifically about special teams. There's a huge emphasis on special teams. They went out, they brought in three coaches with special teams experience, good experience. And I think that they're going to set him up to succeed in that return game. So and to me, that's where you're going to see. I mean, I know that Drew Sanders and Riley Moss and maybe JL Skinner are going to be good on coverages and everything, but people see the punt returns, right? And if they can set the offense up in a position to score, then man, that's going to put them ahead of the game. So I'm going to go with Mims is going to make the largest contribution this year. But I think down the road, I think over the life of their kind of stint, I like Drew Sanders as well. I think he's going to be an impactful player that they can move around once he gets settled in. He's going to probably take over a starting role
Yeah.
as a linebacker sooner rather than later. Probably because Jewell is, his contract is up. They maybe want to move into a younger team there. So definitely.
Yep, for sure. And we got Austin coming in here. Thank you, Austin. He says, Tom, Ron, did y'all talk about Frank Clark's comments already? I just joined. Yes. We did talk about the Frank Clark comments. And if we'll rewatch it. But essentially, I think both of us are in agreement with Frank Clark that, the rivalry between Kansas City and Denver hasn't really been a rivalry at all. So we're much in agreement there. But yeah, you can go back and watch it up near the top of the show. Then we got
Miguel coming back
Miguel.
with Facebook stars. Again, thank you for the support, Miguel. Appreciate it. Everything here. Every time somebody supports us, it just helps us to continue to do the show. So really, we always thank you very much. Asking about tight ends, and from what I've heard, Luke's out there again. Luke Patterson, follow him on Twitter. Luke Patterson LP, I think, is where it is. He's out there. He's watching right now. I'll be out there next week. And he is also writing stuff up on Mile High Huddle. So go. He's got 2 articles out about his reflections on camp, and that will give you some more detail into how it's going. But from what I understand, is Dulcich hasn't looked that great, unfortunately, and he's supposed to be the big tight end guy that kid's coming in is going to wreak havoc. Now, again, don't jump to conclusions. It's 2 days, but so far he hasn't looked that great. What are you hearing about the tight ends?
Yeah, I'm actually not hearing much about the tight ends, but it is, I guess it is a little again, I know it's still early in camp, but it is a little concerning that Dulcich hasn't looked that great. But we'll see what happens. As camp progresses, hopefully that'll change. But yeah, I haven't really heard too much on the tight ends, but it'll be interesting to see as Luke's out there and as you go out how that develops.
And Michael's coming back in again, asking about Nick Bonito. Had a great play. Time for him to step up during Broncos training camp is what he says. And I totally agree with you, Michael. It is Nick Bonito has to live up to his, second round draft status, right? I mean, now don't get me wrong. I thought he was a little bit of a project coming out of college. That first year he had to kind of, build up his strength, get better, get some better pass rushing moves. But this is a year that he needs to show what he can do. Right. This is his second year. No more, he's not a 5th rounder or a 6th rounder that needs a couple years to develop. He's a 2nd round draft pick. Mm-hmm. You hit the nail on the head. He has to step up during this training camp for 2 reasons. One, because he needs to be that guy that can come off the bench and generate pressure and hold the edge when necessary. And 2, you've already got one of the edge rushers on the pup list. Browning isn't even in training camp. And, Gregory can't stay healthy. So he has to be that guy. He has to come in and be that guy. And he made a good play. I don't want to jump to conclusions again because they're not in pads. It's a lot different when you put the pads on and, you're going head to head with that offensive tackle. We'll see. And we'll see what happens there. But hopefully he looks good. And I'm going to definitely watch the edge group with a keen eye when we're out there for sure. What do you think about that, Ron?
You hit on all the points. Thank you, Michael. He has to step up, has to get bigger, has to get stronger because, he is that 2nd round pick. And out of college, I knew he was a bit of a project. Like he was going to take some training, some coaching. He had to, again, get the weight up and everything as we know. But, in the event that the edge room thins out more, who do we have? So he needs to come in, in certain situations, come in and be that guy on the edge. And like you said, someone's already starting on the pup list. What if someone else goes down? We know Gregory can't stay healthy a full season.
Yeah.
So, in fact that the injury bugs comes to bite us again, he has to take that next step. So again, that was encouraging today, what I've been hearing so far about Nick Bonito, but he just needs to continue that development and improvement.
Yeah, and I'll just say this too. I mean, and Dylan is in the chat saying he needs to improve against the run. He does. He definitely does. But here's the thing too, is I think he could be a situational pass rusher if everybody else stays healthy. He can come in and just get after the quarterback, which is okay. But if someone goes down, he definitely has to be able to set that edge. So it kind of, to me, yes, he has to improve his play against the run for sure. But if everyone stays healthy, he could be that kind of, when it's obviously a pass situation, he can be in there and getting after the passer, but he has to have better pass rushing moves. We didn't see enough. I didn't see enough of that last year. So we also have another question about the edge from Rodney Garcia coming in saying, good evening, Tom and Ron and Broncos country. By chance, any update on Christopher Allen? Now, Christopher Allen is one that I thought was going to come out and, tear it up this year in training camp, because I liked him coming out of college. His injuries have stunted his growth a little bit, but he had the tools to be a player in the NFL. What I've seen so far, I'm not out there. I'm definitely going to be watching him when I'm out there. From what I've heard and seen, he hasn't been very impressive yet. So take that as what you will. It's only the second day in, but so far, not super impressive. And he's going to be pushed by another undrafted rookie free agent, Incoom, who actually has impressed so far. And again, it's 2 days in. Take what you will. I still think Christopher Allen can be a player in the NFL if he stays healthy. How about you,
I've heard this. Yeah, and I've heard the same on Allen as well, that he hasn't looked the best, Rodney. But yeah, Nkum is definitely turning some heads. And that was one of my takeaways here as well, that Nkum looked very good, at least these first few days coming out of camp. So.
Yeah, but it's going to be a tough battle, right? It's going to be a battle to see who can get on that roster. I mean, most likely they're going to have 4, maybe 5 edge rushers, depending. I mean, if they're smart, they'll take 5 because the health concerns that we have seen. But when Baron Browning comes back, Frank Clark and Gregory, there's your 3. You've got 2 spots best. So there's going to be a battle to get those final spots for sure. Got Victor coming back in saying, gentlemen, Devontae look. Are we still looking for running backs? And the answer for that is no. He looks great from what I understand. I still cannot believe it. This is kind of unprecedented for the significant injury that he sustained, that he is on the field already and looking good. It's not he's just back on the field. He's been cleared for contact and he looks good out there, cutting, running, and he's ready to come back and start being the Javonte of old.
Yeah. Thank you, Victor. And Javonte looks good. As I mentioned earlier at the top of the show, it looks like he never even got an injury.
Yeah.
He again, it's amazing. These medical advances and how they can heal. It's just amazing, Thomas. And watching him today, do that quick burst, that cutback for that nice run. It was just so exciting, so refreshing to watch. And again, hopefully we'll see more of that. I'm pretty sure we definitely will see more of those angry runs coming in this season for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And Michael's coming back in with more Facebook stars. Thank you again for that support. Saying great show tonight, Thomas and Ron on Orange and Blue View. Go Broncos and Buckham. Thank you so much, Michael. And we'll actually start to wind down the show unless there's not too many more comments coming in. We do have a couple more running back comments. Maybe we'll grab a couple as we head out. And then Clutch Master 59 asked about the centers. So sorry I didn't bring that up, but I don't know much about the centers. I haven't seen anything yet. I've been watching what I can, but I will when I go out there. I'm going to specifically see how they are doing. So thanks Clutch Master 59 for that question. And then Austin is asking about who do you think takes the 3rd running back spot. We kind of hit on this, right? We kind of hit on this already. We both kind of thought that McLaughlin was going to be the guy. He's going to be that 3rd running back after the 1-2, kind of bruising punch that you're going to get from Williams and Pirine. You're going to get that kind of change in pace guy, right?
Yes.
So we talked about that. I know you came in a little late, Austin. We talked about that right away because McLaughlin actually looks really fast and looks pretty good in the offense so far. So in training camp at least.
Yeah.
And then we have another comment from Daniel Yost coming in asking, Tom and Ron, did you guys hear that Jonathan Taylor has requested a trade from the Colts? Well, I heard that because I was looking at the chat and people were saying that. I had not seen it before we got on this show. That's an interesting development. Ron, what are your thoughts?
Wow. Yes, Jonathan Taylor would definitely help this offense. He's one of my favorite backs out there in the league right now. You know, we were saying, do we need him? Well, yeah, not necessarily. We don't really need a Jonathan Taylor, but he would definitely be a nice luxury, a nice to have within this offense. And just imagine, you know, a Taylor with Williams and P. Ryan. It'll just be, I just think it'll be too much. But I don't really see him coming to Denver. It would be nice. Be nice to be wishful thinking, but I don't see it happening. But yeah, that's an interesting development. I'll definitely have to watch that one to see how that goes over the next few weeks.
Yeah, he must be a little bit disgruntled with the Colts. I mean, obviously he'd help the team, but there's no they're not going to trade away a bunch of draft picks to go get Jonathan Taylor. It's just it's kind of wishful thinking for two reasons. One, they don't have a lot of draft picks. They're not going to spend it on a running back and then two, they don't need him, right? I mean, they seem to be very happy with who they have in their backfield. Like I said earlier in the show, I think they only have 5 on the roster, 5 running backs, which is strange because you usually want camp bodies at a position that takes a lot of abuse, but they've spent more time bringing in wide receivers than they have running backs. So unless I'm not reading the tea leaves right, they seem to be, they're either waiting for an opportune moment to bring some big name in, or they're completely happy with who they have. So I just don't see it. I don't see them spending the draft capital on a running back. And I mean, I imagine the Colts are going to try to appease him and keep him in the thing. But I mean, Irsay is an unpredictable guy to say the least. So who knows what he's going to do? I have no idea, but yeah, we'll keep an eye on it and see what happens. But of course he would help the team, obviously, but probably going to be way too expensive.
Yep. And I want to grab this comment in here by Rodney Thomas. Let's look at Rodney. Thank you, Rodney, for coming in, because this is a good comment here. He says, one receiver I see as the odd man out is KJ Hamler. I just can't see him staying healthy this season. Too much with Washington, Virgil, and Mims. Yes, Rodney, that this is spot on. This is how I've seen it shaping out for a while. That KJ Hamler is the odd man looking in, the one out looking in. With the receiver depth, after after Mims, of course, Sutton, Judy, Patrick, then you have Virgil, which I think Virgil, I know we saw that one play, I believe it was against the Titans last season. He can definitely make some noise, depending on how, be interesting to see how he looks in camp. But yeah, with Virgil, then Montreal, Washington, and Mims, I just don't see what role KJ Hamler has on this team. Yeah. Because we already have, Mims and Washington as far as those punt returning duties. And, where is Hamler going to be with just, standard plays on the offense? He's not going to be used. So I just don't see, and obviously his injury history, what role does KJ Hamler have on this offense? So, if that can't be answered, I just don't see where he would fit. What do you think, Thomas?
Yeah, I agree. KJ Hamler, the reason why KJ Hamler is probably not going to make the team has nothing to do with his health right now, because they restructured his contract, kind of softened that blow if he gets injured. Yeah. The reason he's not going to be on this team is because he doesn't play special teams very well. And he's going to be, if he makes teams, going to be the 5th wide receiver, probably. 5th wide receivers have to play special teams. 4th wide receiver has to play special teams. And sometimes the 3rd does as well. So KJ Hamler's not a special teams guy. They've got their punt returner in Mims. I mean, they could try Hamler back there, but he's not playing right now, so they can't even see him out on the field right now. So that's what I keep going back to. If he's going to be the 4th or 5th wide receiver, he has to play special teams, and I haven't seen it. Now, maybe he can. Maybe he becomes a dynamic punt returner, and I'm flabbergasted. That's the big reason. And I'll tell you the it's not Washington, it's not Virgil who is going to impact this wide receiver group. It's Callaway. Callaway is going to impact this receiver group more than anybody else, and this is why I say it. He's familiar with the Saints. He has the ability to be a pass catcher, because he's been one for the Saints. He's caught plenty of passes. In fact, he was their leading receiver last year, I believe, or a year before. I can't remember. I think it was last year. He was their leading receiver. So he has what it takes to be that fourth or fifth wide receiver coming in on the offense. And if he can play special teams well, and that's what I want to look at for in camp, is if he can play special teams, he's going to impact this wide receiver group more than Washington, more than Virgil, and even more than Mims. Mims is probably penciled in to start because they drafted him fairly high anyway. He's a good player. So I think it's Callaway that you really got to watch. And if Callaway really impresses on special teams, you're going to see several of these wide receivers gone. Hinton, Hamler, and maybe some of those young guys that they really liked last year that had an impact. So those are my thoughts on it. We'll see how he does on special teams. All right. Yeah, I'm not seeing any more comments coming in, so it's a top of the hour. We've been rolling here for almost a full hour, so I'm just going to remind you guys one more time. I reminded you on Legends, and we announced it on Mile High Insiders. If you're out at camp and you're out there next week, or any time that Luke's out there, even he's going to be out there the whole time. Come take a picture with us. Post it on Twitter. And you have a chance to win some Mile High Huddle gear. So Mile High Insiders is kind of doing that. So come out, say hi to us, take a picture, post it on Twitter or other social media, and let us know about it. And so don't forget to do that. Get some merch, which would be cool and fun. And or just come out and say hi anyway. Just stop by and say hi, and we'd love to talk to you. So. Anyway, yeah, thank you for being here, everyone. Really appreciate it. Ron, just going to ask you any last words before we close her up.
Yeah. So again, training camp is here, guys, and it'll be interesting to see, developments as they come up with all the position groups. And as Thomas mentioned, if you're out there at camp, please link up with Luke, link up with Thomas. Let's keep the Mile High family linkage going. But yeah, that's all I have, guys. Thank you for joining. And if you don't do anything else, please like, subscribe, and share with all of the channels. We greatly appreciate you, as always.
Yep. All right. Thank you for coming in on this Saturday night. It's the thing that we always say is the most important part is sharing your time. So appreciate you guys being here. It was wonderful talking with you all, and have a great rest of your evening. Go Broncos.
Thanks, guys. Go Broncos.